Welcome to a new edition of Disruption Selling Customer Success Stories. My name is Stefan Herbert. I'm the founder of Disruption Selling.
Good morning, Stefan. My name is Karl Osti. I'm responsible at Autodesk for manufacturing strategies for industry accounts and enterprise accounts.
Thank you for having us here, Carlo. To kick this off, what was the problem you wanted to solve when you engaged Disruption Selling?
So one thing we try to understand is, can we apply learnings and best practices from other industries and potentially trigger a change process here at Autodesk, particularly with regards to disruption selling.
And what convinced you that disruption selling was the right partner to help you with this task?
So, here at Autodesk we operate in a worldwide organization with different business units and different geography, of course. When working with disruption selling, actually the risk for me engaging with you was very small, because we knew each other from the past, and I knew I can put you in front of even very senior executive salespeople. So every one of my salespeople can take something away. But the big topic I had on my side was like, can I learn something from you to prepare my sales team as a part of my own digital transformation? Okay? So we are moving from on-premise solutions to platform, and I want to get the sales guy to a position where they're not just looking at our own portfolio, but they're looking at the complete ecosystem we are having and use that properly in order to drive customer impact.
So if you should describe your expectation you had, what was the expectation and how was it met at the end of the day?
Okay. I think the easy one to start with is potentially how was it met. We had a couple of account teams which we put together, working with you, Stefan, in the disruption selling team. What's very important is that you helped us understanding the clarity to articulate the value propositions, to understand the holistic concept, how to engage and drive value with the customer. And again, we have experienced people, so they know a lot of sales methodology, of course, but having it as an active knowledge, having it with that clarity was really something you helped us with in disruption selling. And the interesting piece, and that's why I measure it as a success, is it drove motivation of the individual account teams, alignment between the different functions, and we proved it out actually with the individual accounting as mentioned. But more interestingly is what we have done actually here in the organization here in Germany is something I can scale around the globe.
Okay.
I can scale to US, I can scale to Asia Pacific, and I can scale it into different business units. So even if it's still a change process, which we have to go through, the real compelling factor for me is it works, it drives motivation, it triggers a change process, and I can use it for scale on a global level.
From our perspective, what we used was what we call a sales play, disruption selling sales play. A sales play is basically a document that describes a desired outcome. So what do we want to achieve? It describes how we get there. And the core of a sales play is the value proposition. So the first question we asked ourselves was, what is, for the specific industry, manufacturing, what is a value proposition that Autodesk has credibility to transport to customers, and how can we elevate this value proposition to the highest possible level, basically to talk to a CEO and an entire board. So what was your experience when we came in and started to talk about the format of a sales play, and we also put a little bit of pressure on people to really stick to that format? What was the experience with it?
So the learning was a little tough on one side, because we're doing things in a certain way we are used to. So we had to change, continue the behavior we have used to, applying something new. You forced us also to look into the value proposition of all the different functions, to look at the value chain of the customers, being able to articulate in self-confidence all the different value propositions along the functions. But also more importantly, to start connecting the value proposition of the different functions into a corporate level value proposition. And to level it up, to have a C-level conversation with the value proposition, that is something which we don't do that often. So again, this is establishing confidence and clarity around that value proposition, and also in the understanding in the account team, what is the sequence of events in the account engagement? How do I prove my value proposition on the functions, and actually to be able to articulate it with proven numbers to see stuff? So there's a lot of sales methodology and also experience you brought to the team, again, resulting into, for us, in the beginning, some of the account teams were skeptical. But I think at the end of the day, what they all came back to was, I understand that I have to articulate the value proposition to see stuff. I have to become more professional. And I think what's also a big topic for us is the conversation that we don't look at these tactical opportunities. We look at the strategic opportunities, which role we can play strategically to that particular customer, driving value, not just with individual products, but with the complete ecosystem, and changing the mindset and the perspective from the account team from small into looking at how do we achieve the big goal. That was actually astonishing, and you guys at Disruption Selling, you just blew us away with that.
To explain this a little bit in our disruption selling terminology, what we built was what we call the top-level value proposition, which is focused on the CEO, on the board, and links to, ideally, a strategic initiative the customer has declared and defined for himself, right? And we find these strategic initiatives usually in annual reports or on, on the website, where the company states, hey, we want to increase, let's say, the portion of revenue we gain with products younger than 5 years. We want to triple that portion, for instance. Yeah? So that is the starting point. We build a value proposition on that top level, and then we break it down to, you call it functions, so engineering, manufacturing, after sales. And why do we do this way? Why do we start with the top level? Is we only can ensure that all the lower level value propositions all play into this top level value proposition if we have clearly defined that top level value proposition. Yeah? And can you describe what happened when your sales colleagues then started to have conversations with the various functions based on that top level value proposition, but specifically customized to the function they were talking to?
Yeah, so we basically had two different outcomes. The internal outcomes, sequence of events, better alignment. Our people now knew why certain things have to get in place at a certain time horizon. That was the internal achievement. The external achievement, the achievement with the customer, we used your methodology and the value proposition approach with the customer, and first explain them why we are asking these questions. What's our methodology? What is we are aiming for? That we're definitely going to aim to a C-level business case. And we want to speak to C-level in terms of what is our contribution to the strategic initiatives with quantifiable numbers. And given that we had this explanation, the customer side actually was opening up. They were skeptical in the beginning. With the classical scenario of, I don't know why you want to speak to all these people and have all these appointments. But he really opened up and says, like, if you really want to do this, if you really want to quantify what's your impact to this strategic initiative is going to be, absolutely, I need to have my personal quantifiable data in their business case. And the business units, they also changed their behavior. They proactively reached out to our contact too, said they want to be a part of that game. They want to be supported, and basically also provided, pains, business case, potential approach, which of course was consolidated. So long story short, from being pessimistic, the customer organization became very proactive, very open, very engaging, because everyone wanted to have his data, reliable pain points, reliable process, want to be aligned with the destination process and destination target and milestones. So everyone wanted to be exactly, yes, I can do this. And this completely changed also the engagement we had, the relationship between Autodesk and the customer, into a much more positive engagement.
So to sum it up, based on that top-level value proposition, you had conversations with all the functions. The functions then understood, hey, that makes sense to have these conversations with Autodesk to drive this overall value proposition, which was specifically targeting one of the strategic initiatives on C-level. So coming back to your introductory comment on platforms. So Autodesk comes from selling in the past perpetual licenses, standalone licenses, right? And then you are in the process of shifting to a platform. So why is it so important to sell a platform, to have these multi-function conversations rather than just a conversation just with, let's say, engineering or design or so?
Yeah, so one is, of course, you want to capture as a part of your company evolution a bigger portion of the value chain of customers. So you automatically get into the next adjacent function, that's clear. But I think what's also more important is you want to, we call it exploit the ecosystem. We have a really big ecosystem of partners and solution providers, service capabilities. We can't do it all alone. We basically have to use the ecosystem as well. And we need to scale and grow with the ecosystem instead of with products, which is one of the big topics. And then last, of course, there is the tendency of focusing even more on data. And data has the nature that it flows along the value chain of the customer. Okay, so we want to support the data flow of technical documentation through the organization and potentially also through the sales organization of our customers or service organization. And with that, you're immediately going to tackle more and more persona. So you need to understand in terms of how does data flow, how does data generate business impact in the customers, what's the prioritization, what's the business benefit for every individual persona, and his function in particular. So long story short, we are moving from a point expert solution to a backbone which supports the value chain of our customers. And we do this, by doing so actually, we become more business critical also for our customers. So we need to be prepared for that. And the engagement with disruption selling was for me also a very important milestone to prepare my own organization to be ready for a platform selling methodology.
So from our perspective, when a vendor moves to a platform, it fundamentally changes the sales cycle. So if you sell a point solution, you basically have one economic buyer, and when you can convince him and his technical buyers agree to it, then basically you tap into one budget, right? And that is not a simple process, but it is simpler than selling a platform, because in a platform you have multiple economic buyers which you have to orchestrate, you have to bring them together, and they have to basically share the investment into this platform. So at the end of the day, your deal is funded out of a bunch of budgets, not just one, but multiple budgets. And to orchestrate this process, you have to build the value proposition for every single function, but in combination, they have to drive this bigger value proposition. So that justifies to co-fund the platform, right? So what was the experience for your salespeople when they started to experience the complexity all of a sudden talking with multiple economic buyers and not have this one-to-one relationship with just one, but a one-to-n relationship with multiple economic buyers?
Yeah, of course, first you need to have multiple buyers in your contact list and you need to be aware that they're existing, okay? So this was the first exercise. But actually talking to the different functions was not hard. So talking to Mr. Production or Mr. Service was not hard actually for us, and our people are getting used to that. Of course they have their own language, they have their own pains, and again, it's a learning curve, but it's not hard. I think where it becomes more interesting is the conversation on, as a customer moving to platform, I want to make sure that I don't implement phase A, which doesn't give me any value, and then I'm kind of stuck in a road to my destination. I want to make sure that this path to platform generates value as a journey. It's not a one-way ticket. And this is also what we heard from the past. It's like, if I'm going to buy a piece of efficient engineering, it doesn't help me in production. Okay? It doesn't help me in service. It's actually exactly the opposite. So again, it's a part of the account team and the account engagement to make sure that this path to platform is as positive and as smooth as possible from a customer perspective. And yes, it really starts with articulating the value proposition, identifying these people, getting a smallest denominator in terms of where to start, what's the next phase going to look like, and building this orchestration and alignment on the customer side, but also, to be honest, on our side.
One of our tenets at disruption selling is that when we start an engagement, we always regard both the organization and the offering of the customer as a given. So we don't come in and say, hey, you have to hire 10 more people here, you have to develop a new product. We say, we have to start with what we have, because we don't have the time to wait for anything to happen in the future. So we want to jump right into it. So basically when we engaged, we said, let's not talk about the stuff you don't have or the stuff you believe you don't have. And let's not talk about some organizational deficiencies. Let's just play with what we have and just kind of reconfigure the building blocks a little bit to drive this higher value level value proposition, right? So what, in your experience, would you say that A, worked, and B, any existing company, any existing organization can do this rather than asking for more headcount, more budget, new products, whatever, but just kind of reassemble the existing pieces in a new way to drive a higher level value proposition?
I mean, an existing organization can't start from scratch. Okay? That would be a complete new legal entity, that kind of stuff. It's a new spin-off, then okay, that's a different approach. In our case, just to reiterate, yes, it's totally true. We are using the products we have. We are using the org structure we have. Okay? Yeah, we haven't hired additional people on that. But what we changed is the mindset, how we define the account and the engagement with the account. What's the sales methodology? And again, this is about unlearning what we currently doing and learning new stuff. And again, at the end of the day, it's going to be a positive experience for my sales organization, just so you reiterate that. We were surprised that moving into platform selling, that we can do even more than expected with the existing portfolio we have and the partners we have in the ecosystem. So it's a positive surprise by changing to a higher level mindset, by applying your methodology, looking at the problem in a bigger way, considering the ecosystem and the complete portfolio. We were actually successful and with confidence to cover much more of the value chain and to cover bigger painkillers, if you want, bigger portion of the value chain where we can help with our customers. So I really appreciate that we didn't have to go through a very lengthy requiring gathering process with some of the vendors on the market. You will see that. So I think that to answer your questions, no, we haven't added additional products. No, we haven't changed the organization. We changed the mindset. And we were successful with that in a big way after changing our behaviors, yes.
Well, thank you, Carlo, for having us here and for providing your feedback. I'm glad we helped you achieve the goal you set initially and expected from us. And I think it's a great achievement to really make a difference in 6 months in an organization that has been around for decades, and also proves the point that today, there is no time to bet on the future. We have to use what we have. We have to start at a certain point. We have to work backwards from the customer. We have to look at our product portfolio. We have to build a compelling value proposition, and then we have to go for it. It's all about execution. It's not about developing new products, changing the organization, developing an ecosystem for the next 24 months or so. But basically, it is making the decision and then going straight into execution. That is what nowadays we believe customers should do, and I think you provided just a wonderful example for that one. Thank you.